Hi everyone, today is November the 29th. My name is Anne Ray Band and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. This is the last trading day of November. Volume will be light. What I wanted to talk about was how tough it was if you were looking at buying the dip on Wednesday. And so the dip did come. We are almost right to where we opened the day on Wednesday and are sitting at a rejection point. But the very interesting thing is, what we really want to take away from these videos, and I have to tell you, I got caught in this full transparency. I looked to the left, thought about, hey, listen, it's a buy the dip, it's low volume, and I began to buy the dip early, and it did not end up well for me until the end of the afternoon, and that is as when the charts began to turn around at about 2 p.m. So here's something super interesting. When I give you the videos in the morning, we look at the cross current, all right? So it was moving down, and the goal was buy the dip unless you wanted to sell, and then the thought would be let it wait to break this prior day's hinge on the close of the VWAP. And once it does that, you look for a failure to break higher and then a continuation of the rotation down. Now, it fell all in one candlestick in that 10 a.m. candlestick. And by 10:30, we had a failed auction from the opening range, which is the first hour of trading, and the market continued to fade. And so the question is always forefront of our mind. One, are we holding support if we're going long? One, are we holding support? And two, is prevailing trend of the VWAP and the moving average that we choose also moving downward? And in this case, it certainly was. It took all the way until 3 o'clock for a retest of that breakdown, because it did run into heavy congestion from that 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and then it gave us another fade, and the last hour of trading, it moved up. So what we do have to remember, key, if we're looking for longs, one, did we hold the close of the VWAP on the prior day? If that answer is yes, we're okay. If it's holding the area, it's okay. If our moving averages are generally up and we are coming into that area, yes, we can take the first test of that long. But if we do not hold that area, or this morning's zone would be the London area close, we've got to give up on the longs until we see a bottoming formation. And how does that look? Fail to close lower, bounces up into resistance, pulls back, and holds a higher low. That takes a lot of patience if you're looking at a 1 hour. You could try it on a 30-minute, but it also makes the cycles run just a little bit tighter. Okay, so that's what we want to look for in general. And you can see it happened at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12:30, and then you could trade it up into resistance. Notice if it fails to break higher, we've got a problem and it's likely to retest support. If trend is lower, that's where you would take a continued short. If it does not break and hold lower, you have to cut that short out. Notice also the stochastic momentum index really begins to lift into the afternoon area. And when moving averages are down and momentum is up, you look at the deep supports to try and hold you, because trend is always master and commander. All right, that was a little bit long. Here's what we're looking at. Pullbacks, as long as we hold 60.24, we're in good shape for buying the dip. If it fails that area, it's going to 617 and 614, which is the point of control. End of the month, could see a lot of shenanigans. We could see a sideways market. If it loses 614, it's down to the 6,000 area, and that becomes another buying point as long as we begin to see failure to head lower, break above support, pulls back and makes a higher low. That's what you have to have for motion to continue upside. Okay, if we're looking for downside, the top 635 looks like a good short for now. Moving averages are a little sideways. Momentum is still pretty high, so if you take a short here, it'll be a quick strike into the 626 number. If it breaks above 638 would be the next line, so you'd need 4 points of risk. Value area high all the way up at 642. Dips are still buys, but they are difficult, and we must make sure that everything else is doing what we need to in order to say, can I buy the dip? Okay, and trend and support are going to be the most important things to look at. Taking a look at the NQ, we've got a lot of lines here, but as we're looking, a lot of times the wiggly moves on our averages tell us the problems that we might be sitting in terms of sideways motion. These trend lines tell us, okay, I've broken this trend line. What is momentum? Down. What is trend of the moving averages and the VWAP? Down. This becomes a short once it breaks and fails to recover 20,900. There we go. So because here's old support and resistance. Now it falls like a stone right through that number. And we have to say to ourselves, all right, what's my stop need to be? I say light and tight if you're trying to buy something here. Old resistance, new support, but trend and momentum are both against you. So if you're trying to pick a bottom, you've got to wait for it to converge before striking, or if you do strike on the dip, you have to immediately keep it light and tight or you're going to run into trouble. This is what we're looking at right now. Flat moving averages, a little bit of negative momentum, this higher high in price and lower high in the momentum event tells us that there's likely selling pressure up there. So the selling pressure looks like it's about 20,931. Loss of 20,917 gives us that edge. I'm going to remove this line and let it be a liquidity event at 900 that tells us the failed break. Again, fails to hold higher, breaks frontline support, bounces, and cannot make a higher high. This gives us the low. We've broken yesterday's closing VWAP action. And so here, it's a do or die for the buyers. What do we have to do if we're trying to buy this area? What's the risk? Well, right now, the risk is 841. That's 20 points. And so we look for if we go, hey, I'm going to buy it here. I wouldn't. I would look for the bounce to sell it. But if you wanted to trade both sides and say, hey, I'm going to buy it here, and then I'm going to turn around and go short up here, also potentially good. Here's the problem. It's in this move that is still by the dip. Still by the dip. I think there's a problem here in tech. It doesn't look anywhere as strong as the others, so that's why my thought is, hey, listen, I'm going to try and sell the tops and buy the bottoms to cover. So this is my thought. Where am I going to be wrong if it breaks out over 920? Breaks out over 920, gets to 930, I'm in a bad space, okay? If it breaks this edge after losing this VWAP, looks to me like 827, 807, and then way back down here at the value area low, 707 as the target. Let's take a look at the YM. YM is holding very steadily. A lot of money moving into U.S. markets because they are performing the best. So it is going to be by the dip here. Notice, again, Wednesday, look at where the volatility, the VWAP close of Tuesday is, right? And literally, we come almost into that space into the end of the day. So once this breaks, this trend line breaks that we have, and we lose the pre-market low, which is the London opening area, it gives us continued shorting action. But you can also look at it and go, all right, I've got high and then a higher high, but then high and then a lower high in momentum. That gives me the shorting action. I'm going to take the short as soon as it breaks down here. Today, we're riding the pine on the top of this edge right here for the momentum area. Dips are still buys. It's very tightly wound. So I suspect we're going to have some kind of break. Break looks like it's in the direction of trend. However, Thursday on the light trading in other countries, the VWAP is 44,886. That'd be the place I would look to buy. And then potentially, 45,000, I would begin to trim that buy. I would not think about a shorting action until, one, I fail to close higher, I break support, which is all the way down at 915, and then I bounce and fail to make a higher high. We've got to have a lot of patience in this market. It's moving around algorithmically, and that matters. Again, volume will be low. It will be low. All right, here we are at Bitcoin. It's at the top of the middle box here at 97,500. This was the place that I took it short the first time. My target was 91. It came into 90,700. Here's the next idea that I have. Because it's a holiday weekend and because everybody's crazy about Bitcoin, I would suspect that a buy the dip could take us back to the 99,360 area. So where is that? That is 95,500. Now, we have not gotten even near that number. So the next line in the sand is probably 96,500. But we've got this line in the sand of 96 even almost. That might be the area that you want to look for a long. Longs are valid all the way down to 95,000. It looks like it's grinding forward, and the dip at 94,000 all the way up to 96,000, 97,000 faded and came back down to 95,500. So it's about $1,500 of motion we've got in the space. And if we're sitting at 97,500 right about now, that pulls us right down into 96,000, where we might be able to buy it again into 98.5 and then 99,360. All right. I don't think buys are valid above 95.5 in this area, because 94, another $1,500 down, should be old resistance, new support. Trading really very, very nicely in here. Some folks tried to buy the RTY, I think. This one is in a very sideways pocket. Dips clearly being bought, but it's also in a really nasty range. 24.34 looks like the buy to me for this zone. Here's the big thing. I think it's, I like selling the RTY. And so I've had a little bit of trouble mechanizing in here. But what we are seeing is this drift off of momentum. Significant drift off of momentum. And that tells me, wait a second, my bounces, they're going to have trouble. And so I would not be opposed to a short 24.62 with the target 24.46. Let's go to oil. What a massive bounce off the London Open. Holy smokes. That is very big. I still think this is a sell zone. Now, here's the difference. Here's why I think this is a sell zone. One, last time we were up here, momentum was really high. Now it's not, okay? And the overall trend in the near term is down. So if it bounces and holds above 69.45, a short is no longer valid because it can stretch all the way up to 70.35, okay? Top of the box. But I do believe around this area, 69.30, 69.40, we've got ourselves a short. If we wanted to use the mechanics of motion, we would, 1, fail to hold higher, 2, break support at 69, 3, bounce and fail to hold 69.33. That's going to give us our A-plus setup for a short in the area. Right now, it's still holding that support floor at 69. So there are some buyers going, you know what? I think I'll take the 69 long and see if I can get back to 69.45 and 69.65. All right, very sideways pocket, but when you've got sideways action, you can usually sell the top and buy the bottom. And that's what we're looking at right now. Let's take a look at gold. Gold's still grinding to the north. The long, I don't know what I think about this one. Here is a trend line that we can stare down. Where are we? Right in the middle of the value area range, right? We still have dip buyers. So this looks like a buy the dip. Here's the rub. We have the same amount of momentum at this spike that we had at this spike. We are failing to head higher. We just broke the support of the point of control, and we are bouncing into a lower high. So what's the rub, Anne-Marie? Looks like a short. Yes, except for the fact that the trend is significantly up and we're above the VWAP. So if you did take a short looking for this area, you'd need to hold your stop fairly tight. The stop is still 26.76. Your targets 71 and then 66, but you're going to have to hold your stop very tight. If it breaks out over 278.70, this is not a good short. Dips are still being bought in this particular formation. Last VWAP 26.48. That's yesterday's closing VWAP 26.48. Could be a beautiful short all the way there, but that would be the area I would suspect the longs would come in, particularly because of the low volume node. Let's take a look at SPY, finally. This one looks a little messy with the lines, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm going to take this line off. At the end of the day, it is still buy the dip, as ugly as that is. Buy the dip, where was it? Value area high. We are well up over value area high. Is this a topping formation? It could be. 600, the bounce above 601 would invalidate that simply because the trend is holding, right? Dips, here is Wednesday's VWAP. No, Wednesday's VWAP is here because it doesn't mark the day it doesn't trade. So Wednesday's VWAP is down here at 598. Look at how it came into that 597 area, right on the trend line break, and it started to hold. It's hard to take a long here simply because you're moving against trend, but you're trying to find a bottom. And so, again, what happens? It fails to close lower, breaks through resistance, that's old support, pulls back and holds a higher low. So it's only the aftermarket event. If we pull back and hold the higher low, it's only the aftermarket event that allows us to go long here. All right? Very, very tough. And here we are at the top of the range, so that would be a profit-taking space until it pulls back, holds that support line, and then is able to take us forward. This one's a little longer due to study, but hopefully some of us have the day off and we're not really sitting in a space where we absolutely need just a short bit of time, and we can take a little time with these. Notice something's going on in the Qs. It's just not holding the strength that it used to, and that is sector rotation. And so people are looking for other winners in the market space. Topping formation, right? You could easily go, you know what? I'm selling the 510s. But Emery, you're telling us to look for trend being in your favor. Yes, that's a different space. Otherwise, if you're moving sideways, your trend is going to be down, it's going to be up. You can look at past resistance and say, okay, wait a second. Here I am coming up to this edge. I just lost it. What's my momentum look like? Well, I have a lower high on the momentum event, so bounces here, I can sell. And that sell lasted the entire day. It lasted the entire day. Here, however, here's our last bounce. Here's the next bounce. Momentum is about the same, so it tells us it could be sideways. That makes dip buying in the direction of trend what we want to do. So it comes down into 505, 504.60. Look for it to try to hold structure, and you can buy that area long. Use this on a 30-minute formation. You'll be able to see much more. Where's the resistance pocket? It's back up here near 510. Could we break it? You betcha. And if we break it, we've got opportunities to go all the way to 512, 513. What do we have to watch for? We have to watch for, one, if I take the short here, does it breach and immediately reverse? You're in good shape. If it breaches and begins to build structure, that short is not looking good. Get out of the trade if it breaks your resistance area at 5:10:30, and then reset light and tight. All right? Take care, everybody. Know a little bit longer. Just wanted to explain some things about raw mechanics. See you soon.